Proper market awareness spans further than having a solid foundation, especially within the era of live service games being the definitional industry standard. What might drive brand popularity is engagement through association of one's identity, typically within a commercial context, striving for vibrant visualizations to entice customers. A brand does not inherently have to be complex to be provoking, nor does it need to be too simplistic to be marketed towards a wider demographic. Careful emphasis placed on proper brand competence and relevance to color, game makers cast a veil, embedding a purpose for all with an eye's view. Be it an up-and-starting independent game studio or a massive conglomerate corporation, proper branding is essential to cast a positive light upon a company, specifically regarding their portfolio and credibility. But what exactly does it mean to define a brand? When discussing a game studio's identity, one might consider their flagship titles, perhaps lasting in a chronological series and sporting popularized characters that generate revenue. Think of Super Mario Bros., Legend of Zelda, Pokemon, and Call of Duty, all of which being games that blossomed into their own respective franchises. When consumers receive products from these respective series, they often know what to expect. They will continue to buy into what they prefer, and major changes in the formula can foster further growth potential. Thereby, these titles have names that market themselves, a goal that every developer, from singular to large scale, dreams of achieving with their brand new hit IP. However, the game industry is not created equally, and ultimately, large corporations have an advantage in this space given their lengthy portfolios that house a multitude of franchises. Branding based off of a studio itself, studio marketing, occurs primarily when an announcement of a product elicits a monolith of instant social media coverage online. In those instances of E3, typically those games revealed from Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and others create more traction than an indie game debuting for a small independent studio. To stay within relevance to color, it is important to consider a factor that drives these games with proper market relevancy that might warrant a franchise in the first place. Mascots drive revenue and allow for mass production of material product and mouthwash, because everybody needs video game mouthwash, right? If it prints money, put a popular mascot on it and it'll print even more money. A key guide to capitalism. But jokes aside, what makes a mascot truly popular is its design, and whether that design attributes to the target audience of the product. When game developers want a player to be drawn toward a certain aspect of a game, color is often the primary way of doing so, as was previously discussed with progression and hostility. The same goes with mascots, often sporting colors, vibrant or muted, and simplistic or rigid geometry. To display this, I'd like you to think about what first comes to mind when you think of Nintendo. Mario? Pokemon? Kirby? The Legend of Zelda? What kinds of similarities might be drawn between these four franchises? And can you visualize the mascots of these series just by hearing their names? If you are aware of Nintendo, signs point to yes, and that is because these characters generally have consistent, vibrant, and generally simplistic designs that are striking and memorable. Limited color palettes are used, and they are targeted generally towards younger demographics, aside from The Legend of Zelda, which demonstrates how a more complicated looking character with rigid features and often muted greens corresponds with a game intended for an older audience. But mascots can serve a greater purpose than purely driving sales and eyes towards certain products. Within the late 2000s, companies such as Nintendo and Microsoft used avatars as a way of branding the Wii and Xbox 360 respectively. Through complex character creators where you are the protagonist, the idea that you are whoever you want to be is portrayed, especially relevant for systems, as those priorly mentioned, where all demographics were targeted. Within this perspective, character creators allow for any character the player might deem appropriate to suit them or someone of their choosing. For RPGs, The user can characterize themselves by the color clothing they sport and complexity of features they implement. Producing the next Pikachu or Master Chief is everything but easy, but it is important to consider the relevance of color, along with the underlying purposes of complex and simplistic mascot aesthetic when defining a brand. Vibrant colors attract the viewer's attention and are often associated with varying demographics, while harsher tones are often suited for more mature audiences with complex game design. It is only through proper use of color and aesthetic that a popular mascot is created, casting a veil upon the industry at large.